right, hello everyone, and welcome to the Roundtable Discussion this month. We're so happy to have you. This month, our speakers are Lori Glockner, Director of Operations with Notary2Pro. I'm Sabrina Ingolstad, Senior Marketing Analyst with Notary2Pro. And then we have our two wonderful faculty members. We have Andrea Dooling, as well as Stephanie Rowland, and you'll note their notary companies and their YouTube channel. So nice to have you, ladies.
Thank you.
All right.
Thank you.
So,
and you are Sabrina.
I am Sabrina. Very nice to see everyone again. All right. So this month, we have a very important topic, but just to go over our normal roundtable series, it's about 30 minutes every month of highly impactful information to help notaries and loan signing agents grow their business, expand their skills, and just to make life and work a little bit better and easier for you guys. So today's topic is verifying signer competency, which I think all of my co-hosts will agree is a very important topic within notary and loan signing agent businesses. So once again, if you're just signing on, if you haven't, please introduce yourself in the chat. So to start, we just want to talk about what signer competency is. So in general, the definition of competency is the ability to do something successfully or efficiently. Regarding notary work, it refers to a signer's legal capacity to sign an official document, make rational decisions, and express themselves. So this is a very challenging yet core responsibility of any public, notary public or loan signing agent. And I think Lori had a separate definition that she really liked for signer competency.
A person is mentally competent if they can understand the rights, responsibilities, risks, or benefits involved in decisions and the potential consequences of what they are deciding. That's the definition
that you have. Beautiful. So we thought today was a really important topic because I think competency or verifying it is just as important as identifying someone. Mm-hmm. So going on, we're gonna go a little bit into the different forms of incompetence that you might see the most during the signing. Once again, you won't see these a lot. They're pretty rare to have, but at some point you will probably run into this. So the most common form you will see, they're not in any order, are signers who are under the influence of drugs, alcohol. They may be taking a medication that impairs their ability to sign, or they just have a mental condition or disease that doesn't allow them to have full competency. So would you guys like to speak to any of these or instances where you run into them, or how important it is to make sure that these aren't a factor in the signing?
I do have a comment. Having a mental disorder does not automatically mean that a person is incapacitated to make a decision, but they must be able to specifically understand what the situation is, what's going on. And you can determine that by questions.
Yeah, that is a beautiful point. And to piggyback off of that, I do have an example of what you're speaking of. A male called me at one point asking me to go get some documents signed and notarized. It was not a loan signing or anything. It was regular general notary work. So I show up to the home and a woman answers the phone, and I ask for the person that I'm looking for, and she guides me to the lady sitting on the couch. And she was very nice, very pleasant, but I realized very early on that there was something awry with the situation because like what I do when I first enter the room is I start asking different questions. How are you doing today? Mm-hmm. It's coming out with general things, but they're not realizing I'm using that to figure out if they are competent and if everything is right with the situation. Well, within like minute number 2 or 3, she asked me what was I doing there or why I was there. And I explained to her. And probably about 3 or 4 minutes later, she asked me again. So I explained to her that I had some documents for her to sign. And I'm getting all my stuff ready and I'm pulling things out. And a few minutes later, she asked me again. So I asked the lady who answered the door, I asked her something. I don't remember exactly what I asked her, but I realized that she was her caregiver and that the lady recently had brain surgery. She had fallen off of a balcony and had several operations done.
Wow.
And so she had short-term memory loss among some other things that were going on. But after being there, I stayed there probably about 10 or 15 minutes, just chit-chatting with her. And towards the end, I realized there was no way I could complete the signing because she had no idea what she was signing. And from minute to minute, couldn't even remember what was going on. And so, of course, I left and I called the gentleman who called me, and I let him know that I was not able to fulfill or complete the signing. But what ultimately ended up happening is the guy who contacted me was her ex-husband, and he wanted her to sign some documents that weren't quite right. And so I, of course, notated all of that in the journal to let it be known the reason why I refused the signing and could not get the documents executed. Should anything ever come up, I had that documentation showing why I couldn't do it.
Wow.
So it might not be required in every state to write down your refusal, but you're recommending, and Notary2Pro recommends always documenting that, right?
Absolutely. Cover yourself.
Yeah. And so you're documenting not only the questions, but their answers as well, right?
And I'm documenting even the people who I saw. So the caregiver, I put that person's name into my journal and what she told me, and I documented what the guy on the phone told me. And so should anything ever come up and I'm called into the court or whatever, I have that information kind of to refresh my memory.
And Stephanie, what about you? Do you have any instances where you've run into any incompetency during the signing?
Well, just right before Christmas, actually, I was walking into a loan signing and I saw open bottles of alcohol or beer and wine, and they were in the process of moving. And so, you know, I commented, I said, well, I see that you have some open bottles of alcohol. Have you guys been drinking? And yes, they had been drinking. You know, they were getting ready to move and just enjoying the day. And so I proceeded to explain to them that first of all, I don't allow any liquids at my signing table whatsoever. So alcohol is a big no. So I asked some questions to make sure that they were aware, and they had just started drinking, so I wasn't worried about it. You know, they knew why I was there and everything. But there was one instance in particular. I got a phone call from a lady who seemed agitated. Her husband was dying, and she had, I think it was like a will or some power of attorney document. I asked her some questions like, is your husband on medication? Does he know what he's signing? You know, things like that. When I arrived, she seemed very agitated. Her husband was upstairs, so I went upstairs. I explained to the wife that I needed to have some time alone with him to ask him some questions to make sure that he knew what he was signing. So I went up there and he was curled in a fetal position, and there was medication bottles on the side of the table. Well, I didn't need to look at those bottles to know that this man was heavily drugged, but he was very agitated. So I asked him, and I couldn't get him to talk. So I was wondering if he was even able to talk. Well, after asking him some questions and talking very calmly and gently with him, I realized that he was very fearful of his wife. He whispered to me that she's trying to kill me. She wants my money.
Oh, wow.
And so I halted, you know, it was for general notary work. So I went downstairs and I said, I explained to her, I said, when I talked to you on the phone, I asked you certain questions to make sure that your husband was aware of what he was signing, that he was aware and not heavily medicated. And you said that he was aware and was not medicated, but I found otherwise. And I said, I will not be notarizing these documents for you. And I gave her the exact reasons why. And the sad thing about it is that she was so desperate, she just probably called another notary who would do it. And, you know, so I was really, really upset about this. When I left, I drove down the street. And so I called Adult Protective Services. That was really all I could do, because it's not my place to do anything else. But I felt that it was my place to call somebody to help out in this situation, because this man was obviously not being cared for in the way that he needed to be cared for in this instance. I don't know what happened after that.
Definitely. And that's like an extreme, right? So you and Andrea both dealt with medical incompetence, but yours is definitely an extreme where the man was fearful. So good on you for doing your due diligence and asking those questions, because I'm sure it deterred or eliminated the process of getting those documents notarized when they shouldn't be. So,
and like Andrea, I noted everything in my journal, very detailed.
Yeah.
The same with the loan signing. Like if I'm at a signing and there has been, I have walked into signings before where people were just getting ready to open up alcohol, or even asked me if I wanted alcohol. And, you know, like I just explained, I don't allow any liquids at the table, let alone any alcohol.
Wow.
Yeah, it's certainly not easy to refuse service to people, but I have to look at it as I'm protecting myself, and also I'm protecting the person who initially would be signing the documents. If something is awry, if something is amiss, then I have to realize that it is my responsibility to say, no, we cannot proceed with this.
Yeah, and I think it's really important to note that sometimes notaries or loan signing agents, you know, deeming someone incompetent, you're the last line of defense against this person potentially being frauded. So I think that's super important. In the chat, real quick, I just want to say Douglas noted that when he was working for the IRS phone line, he would have customers that would call and say that they're not going to stop until they get an agent that gives them what they wanted. So this reminds me of her, you know, trying to find any notary to do it. So you just have to have that integrity and say no and stand up for what's right. And then Tamiko commented that this is a great and real world experiences that we are sharing. And this is what a lot of notaries will encounter at some point. So it's super important to know. But thank you in the chat. So next. So one point I really wanted to emphasize that when notaries are deeming someone incompetent, especially medically, this is an observation based on their experience and it's not a diagnosis. So in no way, shape, or form are you deeming this person to have a medical diagnosis, right? So just going to go over the points and then we can circle back. So notary publics and loan signing agents are under no circumstance offering a medical diagnosis of a signer. They are using their experience and expertise to make an educated decision regarding competency based on their observation and interaction with the signer. This is why I think what Andrea said was so important about just having a basis of conversation when you first arrive to just feel out, right, how this person is, what their normal baseline kind of personality is, so you can make those educated decisions on them. And then once again, just how important it is to have these follow-up questions ready and then to document them in case anything comes back on you, right?
Correct. I have a question for Andrea. What kind of questions are you asking when you first get there, and what kind of questions are you probing using?
So, general questions would be, do you know what you're signing? Normally, when I have the documents and we're about to start, I'll go ahead and ask that question. Another question I ask, do you know what the day of the week is? Do you know who the president is? But throughout the entire time, I am kind of surveying the situation. For example, last month I had a signing at a nursing home. And for those that are seasoned and those that are new, you'll find that a lot of people who are in the nursing home, they do not have their driver's license or any kind of ID, or oftentimes it is expired. So you're having to use a credible witness. So as I'm walking in, I'm looking around at my surroundings, and I happen to see a board that shows everyone's birthday. And by coincidence, the person that I was getting signed the documents and I'm notarizing the documents for, her birthday, she was on there, and it was like the very next day. So when I walked in, I'm like, "Hi, Mrs. Let's use Jones, for example. Do we have, did I hear that you have a birthday coming up?" And she looked at me and she was like, "Really? Yes, my birthday's tomorrow." She's all excited. Well, of course, there would have definitely been some red flags if she didn't realize that she had a birthday coming up, or if something like there would have been something there. So throughout that entire time, as we're talking about her birthday and we're talking about the family members that are around the bed, I'm using all of this information to figure out the situation, to see if she's confident. Does she know the people that are around the bed? Does she know why we're here? And so it could be those general questions, but it could be just sparking up conversation, and you're using those key things to figure out what's going on.
Very good. Yeah.
And Stephanie, do you agree? Is that typically how you go through a signing?
Yeah, I always start off, I like to make my signers comfortable, so I always try to find something, that I can comment on. But always, whenever I go into a nursing home or a rehabilitation center, I always make sure that I have time alone with the person who is going to be signing the documents, to make sure that they know what they're signing. I ask them questions like what day of the week it is, who is the president of the United States, things like that, that aren't that difficult to answer. But again, I have had to turn down notarizations before, because I have felt that the person was not fully aware of what they are signing.
Okay. And what is the significance of asking the signer questions when they're alone?
Because sometimes I feel that, family members could potentially rehearse certain questions, that, or certain answers. So I like to get them alone so that they're not, especially if I see eyes, making contact with one another. It's just very important to be alone with that person so that you can make an educated decision of where their stance is mentally.
Well, it's also if they're being coerced.
Exactly.
Yeah, definitely. Okay, and then just segueing into this, so it is so important for loan signing agents and notaries to think about competency and verify it, because you're liable, right? So a notary public or loan signing agent can be held personally liable for notarizing the signature of an incompetent person and face claims against their notary bonds or errors and omissions insurance. So this is why it's super important, right? Because at the end of the day, it does fall on you. It's as important as verifying identity. I'm sure neither of you have had run into any of this, but do you know anyone who has? Or
No, just what I've seen in like the news. Real estate agents hiring, I guess, fake notary publics to sign and notarize documents. And even I think I saw where President Trump had a notary that did something unethical. I don't know the whole situation, but just that. I don't know anyone personally, and I hope that never happens.
Yeah.
Mom used to took over an escrow office, and the notary before her was notarizing things illegally, and that she was also caught with, what was it? She was notarizing for some family members or something, for somebody that wasn't competent at the time or something anyway. But
Yeah.
so mom had run into that when she was before she started doing mobile notary
Oh, wow.
and little signings.
Mhm.
Yeah.
You know,
It took years. It took them years to get this gal too. Years.
Wow.
They chased her
Wow.
around for a long, long time.
Mhm.
Anyway.
I think we really need to stress the importance of our job. We are not just a notary. Our job is so important. I
Mhm.
wish people would really stop to think about what we do on a daily basis. I mean, we are constantly multitasking while we're doing our signings. I'm always aware of what's going on around me. And, you know, I mean, it's a great job and everything like that, but we are so important, especially in this day and age. There's so much fraud going around right now. So just, you know, instead of saying you're just a notary, be proud of what you do. Stand up for what you do.
Yeah, it's super
Yeah.
important. Your role is super important.
Yeah.
I just wanted to chime in or read one of Douglas's comments that I thought was really important to the last slide. So it's also important to separate individuals or ask them questions alone in cases of domestic disturbances, right? There's things that we might not be able to see if it's both of them in the room, but a woman or man might feel comfortable sharing if you're alone with them. So I think that's a super important point to read.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
I
of
wanna
course,
read-
the whole family dynamics, when you have general notary work and you have families sitting in the room there, you have no idea what their motives are. You don't know if they
Mhm.
mean well or whether they're just trying to swindle money out of the signer. And so you
Yeah.
want to make sure that you're doing a public service and you're doing the best you possibly can by ensuring that you and the signer are not being harmed or not getting in trouble by signing these documents.
Yeah.
Mhm. Yeah. And it's better to be safer than sorry. I want to get to this story about Roxanne Kruger that she shared that's really relevant, but I also wanted to ask you guys a question. So let's say you do have to refuse a notarization because someone is under the influence of drugs, alcohol, or just medication. What are your next steps after you refuse and you document that in your journal?
So one of the things that I did is I called whoever called me. So I'm letting if it's the signing service or whoever it is, I'm letting them know why I did not complete that signing for them. Therefore, they don't have expectations that I did do it.
Okay.
So that's number one. And like you said, the journal piece. But yeah.
Okay. So if you run into someone who perhaps, like Stephanie said, she's gone to people's houses where they're drinking or have open containers, do you reschedule the signing or do you just let them know you won't be able to complete it?
Well, I've never had to reschedule because, you know, they've stopped.
Okay.
They don't open up their beer or whatever, or, you know, they've stopped drinking and I can tell that they aren't under the influence. But
Okay.
in the case of that poor man who was so scared that his wife was trying to kill him, you know, the only thing that I could do was call Adult Protective Services. And then I actually called your mom, Lori, because I wanted to know if there was anything else I could do, but she let me know that I did everything correctly.
Yeah.
It really shakes me up when something like that happens. A lot.
It's just,
Is
it's
it
awful
pulls on
getting
your
into those
heartstrings.
situations. What?
I said it pulls on your heartstrings.
It does.
You're feeling like you don't know what to do or what else can I do.
You feel
as-
helpless sometimes, and sometimes you do.
And I guess if I had someone who was drinking and I could tell that they were intoxicated, if it's general notary work, then I can certainly reschedule that. If it's a loan signing, then that's kind of a different story because obviously we need to go back to the company that scheduled it and let them know what happened and see if we can reschedule. It could be that the interest rate lock is over and we can't reschedule, and so they have to start the process again. But if you have to do that, you really need to contact the person or the company and see what can be done. Can we actually reschedule it for the next day or whatever the case may be? But what I do know is I can't continue with it today.
Yeah.
So Lori, you've had times where you've had to reschedule a signing?
Yes. Yeah, walking into a house. And this is only after I'd learned what pot smelled like. I didn't know what pot smelled like. And this was not too long ago. I walked into a house that was just reeking. I thought there was like 12 skunks that lived there or something.
Oh, wow.
It was like overwhelming. And so I told them that unfortunately I wasn't able to sign. They were like really cool about it.
I'm sure they were. I'm sure they were.
They're like, that's fine. So I had to go outside and make the call and let them know that due to circumstances, I was not able to complete the signing, and can they reschedule? And I told the whoever I spoke to on the phone, and they're like, oh, okay. And they were able to do it, you know, a couple of days later. But I've been in some situations where it was a little nerve-wracking to have to tell these people that I needed to stop the signing or something and leave and reschedule. And I've turned some signings down and said, you're going to just need to find another notary to do this.
Yeah.
And gave them a reason why. But yeah, so anyway, it's all the other little signs that you have to kind of watch out for, just to make sure that that they hadn't opened up a big bottle of scotch earlier or something.
Yeah, exactly. Well, thank you for sharing your stories, ladies. I wanted to share Roxanne's about her elderly uncle. So she said that she had an elderly uncle that was swindled in California by his own son. He convinced the notary public to sign documents, turning over the deed to his uncle's house 3 days before he died. He had been confused for weeks before signing the documents. It's puzzling how the notary didn't see the signs. So that's an example of a notary not doing their due diligence, right? And it's pretty unfortunate. I actually just opened the poll for everyone in the comments if you guys want to look. I just some questions about it when you've run into incompetency and how you handled it. And then while you guys are doing that, we're going to wrap up. But yeah, so, you know, you're going to run into instances where people are trying to swindle or get over. And I think it's just, that's why it's important to have that integrity, right?
Absolutely. And it's not every day that this sort of stuff happens. I don't want to scare anyone. Yeah, but in a year's time, 1 or 2, you just have to be aware of it because you're putting your commission on the line.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm going to stop sharing for that and we'll go over the poll. So I'm going to let the poll run for like a few more seconds and then I want to talk about everyone's answers and then we'll wrap up. So I'm going to give it like 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. All right, so let's look in the poll. So the first question was, have you ever had to deem a signer medically incompetent? 19% of our attendees said yes, they have, while 81 said no. So that's pretty standard, right? It's not, you're not going to run into it that often, but you will. I said, have you ever had to deem a signer incompetent because of alcohol or drug use? 100% no. So that's good. It's good to know people aren't running into a bunch of, you know, drunk people. And then, have you ever felt unsafe after deeming a signer incompetent for any reason? So everyone said no, so that's awesome, right? We don't want our signers feeling unsafe, but I thought this was important because sometimes it can be really uncomfortable or intimidating to turn down a signing, especially if someone's under the influence of something, right? Or if it's a sketchy situation. So what would you guys recommend if you do feel unsafe or if you want to just get out of a situation because you just don't feel comfortable?
Get out quickly.
Right.
Try to be as nice and as concise as possible. But while you're saying, unfortunately, I can't do all of this, you're packing your bags and you're headed to the door. because you don't know what's going to happen next. It again is even more rare that you have a situation where the person is absolutely irate and is willing to do something about it, but still you don't want to put yourself in that situation. So pack your stuff up, leave as quickly as possible.
Yep. And then contact whoever, right?
I've been in a situation where I was really actually very scared. And I told them that my parents were waiting right down the road because we were supposed to go eat. And that, you know, they're right there. And I kept texting and I'm like, I'm so sorry to do this, but my mom is, you know, my mom and dad are asking how much longer. So, you know, and so because I wanted to get out of there as fast as possible.
You come up with an excuse. And this kind of goes back to the one video where we had about protection and what do we have. So yeah, you hope you never need that sort of thing, but it's better to have it.
Yep, exactly. And then so for the last question, it was, does your state have notary law addressing signer competency? So 63% said yes, 13 said no, and 25 said I'm unsure. And I'm not surprised by this because when I was researching competency across the United States, it's very vague in some states. Even in California, they don't have specific language for competency. It kind of just refers to, like, they have to, for jurats or acknowledgements, they have to be able to answer aloud, or they have to be able to acknowledge, right? And if they can't do that, they can't sign. So that's why we really just recommend knowing your state laws, right? And really understanding them, and then just like being safe above everything, right? So protecting yourself and your integrity and just your business in general, right? Douglas made a really good comment about the safety. He said, always sit closest to the door in any signing. So that's good. Yeah, but thank you. Do you guys have anything else on competency? Are there any last minute questions for the chat? Think we're good?
I think we're good.
I think we are.
All right. Well, thank you everyone for attending. This replay will be available by the end of the week, hopefully next week at the latest. Remember to always verify competency. It's super important. And make sure to register for our next roundtable. Thank you, ladies, so much. Great conversation. Everyone's saying thank you in the chat. Great information.
Good.
Thanks.
All right, ladies.
Hi, guys.
Bye-bye.